In last week's short video, I bemoaned the fact that there were some people who were being very inward looking and were saying dreadful things like it serves the Ukrainians right because they were terrible during the war, they killed millions of Jews, and even now they're anti-Semitic and Megilah, they deserve what they're getting, and this was dreadful. And I bemoaned the fact that there were Jewish people saying such things. We're meant to rise above that. And I spoke about the idea of that through us, the whole world is meant to be blessed. We are meant to be an Or LaGoyim. We're meant to be a light to the nations, meaning that we should be on the very highest of the highest moral high ground. And those kind of comments do not become any Jewish person. And on the back of that, I came across, I suppose, rather obscure pasuk in Megillat Esther that most of us don't really pay too much attention to. And although this is probably not simple explanation, simple pshat, I wonder whether this might just be something to think about. Let me show you the pasuk that I'm talking about. It's in the time in the Megilah after the main stories happened. Haman has been hanged. Not hung, he was hanged, and the war has gone on. The Jews have been successful, and they have been able to defeat their enemies. And there's a pasuk here that's on the screen for you now. And in every province, in every city, in anywhere where the king's edict has reached, simcha v'sason, happiness and joy. Layehudim was to the Jews, mishteh v'yom tov, a festive meal and a holiday. And here comes the interesting bit. V'rabim me'amei haaretz, and many people from the local populace, Mityahadim, it's translated here, became Jews, and I'll talk about what it really means in a second. Ki nafal pachad haYehudim alehem, because the fear of the Jews was upon them. At first glance, I think the simple pshat of that is that the locals saw that the Jews were successful in their defense of themselves and were killing their enemies, and they became afraid, and so they became Jews. I don't think that's what it means at all. First of all, this word mityahadim is the only time in the whole of Tanakh that this word is used. It's used in modern Hebrew, actually. I had the privilege recently to translate a government report from Hebrew to English, which was written by a friend of mine, Danny Limor, who some of you will know was the leader of the Mossad effort to get the Ethiopians out of Ethiopia in the 1980s. And he has spent his time recently going around all the communities in the world that are trying to identify with the Jews in Nigeria, all over Africa, actually, in South America. And he wrote a report for the government, and he used this word mityahadim. These were communities, not that were going through conversion, but who were identifying as Jews or identifying with Jews and wanted to take upon themselves Jewish custom. And if you look at this word mityahadim, it's a reflexive verb, and yeah, you can see Yehudi is in the middle of that word there. It's a reflexive, it takes upon themselves. They're empathizing with the Jews. And I just wonder whether the pshat here is mityahadim ki nafal pachad haYehudim alehem. They weren't really frightened of the Jews. They didn't become Jewish because they were frightened of the Jews. They could have just stayed at home. The Jews were only interested in the oivehem. They were what they killed their enemies. If you weren't an enemy of the Jews didn't attack you. No, I think that what this possibly means is that they empathized with the Jews. They felt for them. They took upon themselves the feeling of how it felt to be a Jew. Ki nafal pachad haYehudim alehem. They realized what it was like to be a fearful Jew. In Shushan, before Esther's intervention in the kingdom of Achashverosh, can you imagine the fear, what must have gone on when they thought that the might of the entire empire of 127 countries was going to come crashing down on them at the behest of Haman. This must have been a very, very fearful time. And thankfully, we know the end of the story. It turned out well for us. But I just wonder how that fear must have played out during those 11 months between the casting of the lots and the coming of the day of Purim. And I wonder whether this expression Mityahadim ki nafal pachad haYehudim alehem, that the locals, or at least some of them, felt empathy for how that fear must have been, and they identified with that. And that's what we must do. What these poor people must be going through, Jew or non-Jew, makes no difference. Of course, we feel closer to our own family, and of course, we must do everything that we can to help our own families. But we must not have an attitude of, I'm all right, Jack, we'll only deal with our family and the rest of society can go to hell. That's not the way a Jewish person should feel. We should have empathy for everybody. And when you read of the horrors that's been going on, hospitals being bombed, children and mothers being buried in rubble, it is impossible not to feel that pain and to try and do whatever we can to help them. Our prayers should go out to the whole of humanity who are suffering under this terrible regime, whether they be Jew or they be non-Jew. Our prayers are with them. We should try and do what we can for them practically in donating if we can, and certainly they should be in our prayers, and we should ask for our Father in heaven to be merciful upon all of them and then upon all of us, and we should have Shabbat Shalom and a Purim Sameach.